to NetKno, the networking show. And we're getting a bit strategic in this episode. So I want to talk about networking ROI. So what is our networking return on investment? So before we delve into this, I want you to have a think to yourself and think about what it is that you currently spend on networking. So when I say network, I mean going specifically to events, to network, to connect. There might be some knowledge transfer in there, obviously some education, some, there might be a conference or an exhibition, whatever. But over the course of a year, how much do you think that you are currently investing in your networking activities? Have a little think. You might want to press pause. You might want to do some calculations, get your calculator out. You might Carol Vorderman it, do it in your head, whatever works for you. But have a think on what you think you spend over the course of a year. Whatever number that you've got, if you're shouting going, oh, I just go to free events, I don't spend anything. You, my friend, are wrong. Networking is always costing you money because at the very minimum, even if you don't spend any money on membership fees, on travel costs, any tickets, if you only go to the free events, you are still investing your time. There's always an expense when it comes to networking. So even if you just go to free events, and even if they are just, online events, so there's no travel costs, there's no parking costs. If you do go to in-person events, then you do have those additional expenses. You've potentially got train tickets. If you travel a long way to go to conferences, you've maybe got planes, trains, automobiles, you've got hotels, you've got food, you've got beverages. These things start adding up. But even if you just go to online events, you are still investing your time. Once you start adding up the other costs, so the things that we want to consider when it comes to looking at what we're investing in networking, yes, we want to look at the hardcore cash. So you've got membership fees to join a network. That's a cost, an annual fee. The ticket prices, so tickets costs totally vary. There are a lot of free to attend events. There are also really expensive events. If you're exhibiting, it's going to cost potentially thousands of pounds to exhibit at an event. But then you've also got the costs of things like travel, food, accommodation, and within that, you've got a lot of marketing materials that you might not think about. So the cost of business cards, getting those designed and printed. You might have leaflets done. If you are an exhibitor at an event, then you're also going to have the cost of getting that exhibition stand created and designed and built and all the things that come with that. So over the course of a year, you are potentially investing thousands. Apps, the bigger the business, if you've got multiple people within your organization that go to these events as well, then again, double, triple, quadruple it, thousands of pounds over the course of a year in the actual expense of cash, plus that time investment. And that's the one, it's really hard to quantify the investment that we're putting into networking and looking at what we're getting back in return. Because unlike other forms of marketing, so something like social media, for example, we put in X amount, we know exactly what we've spent on it, and then we can see the data, the numbers. It's live, instant feedback on what we are getting in return for that investment. When it comes to networking, however, it's a little bit more difficult to really quantify exactly what we're getting back in return. But this is where it's so important to be just mindful, first and foremost, of what you're spending. Acknowledge that the spend is there, the time investment, the financial investment, the commitment that you're putting into your networking activities. You could also then argue things like going for one-to-one coffees, having a catch-up meeting, taking a client out for dinner, all these things. These are all networking activities as well, even though it's just not specifically networking events. It's being mindful of that expenditure and the cost and the investment that you're making in, and then looking at what it is that you actually want in return for that investment. So there are so many wonderful reasons to go networking. So yes, obviously you want to potentially go networking to meet clients. And that's a nice, easy way to go, right? We have spent X amount this year on networking activities, and in return, we have got 10 new clients, we have maintained another 20 clients, and we've had referrals to another 10 potential clients. So that's quite a nice, easy way to go, right? This is what we've spent, this is what we've got back. But a lot of the other things that we get back in return from networking they're not as easy to kind of monitor and put a figure next to. So things like knowledge, access to information that allow us to make more strategic decisions. They allow us to innovate within our business, create new ideas, all those kind of things. They're a lot harder to monitor. But again, having that as an expected return, setting that as one of our objectives for networking, that allows us to kind of step back and say, right, we are investing this, but the things that we're getting back are worth so much more than that, because, you know, we could maybe monitor things like if you've created new products and taken them to market, for example, if you use, what's it called when you do like when, you know, your IP thing? You know, when you like create a new thing and a patent, there you go. If you work in that kind of world, how many new patents have you generated or put in that year, for example? So that could be a nice little metric that you could include in what you're getting back in return from those conversations, those innovative ideas that are sparked by going to these events and conferences. If you are in the business of knowledge, so if you're in academia, for example, and going out and sharing knowledge and accessing knowledge and getting feedback on your own research and your ideas and doing poster presentations or presenting your work at conferences, for example, the knowledge and information that you are getting from those, it's a little bit more difficult to monitor as a return for that investment. But looking at, you know, how many papers you've submitted that year, for example, or new projects that you're working on, or new ideas that have been generated, and where did those ideas come from? Finally, when it comes to, you know, looking at what we're investing in our networking activities and what we expect back in return, I think setting out those list of objectives, absolutely invaluable. Being aware that what we get back in return isn't always as tangible as money. It's not as easy to monitor. So it doesn't mean that you're wasting money by investing it in networking activities. It just means that it could be coming back to you in lots of different ways. Word of mouth marketing. It's really difficult to kind of monitor those things, but having it as something that you are aware of as an individual, as an organization, and then celebrating those successes when they do happen. This is where we can start thinking a bit more strategically. So once you know what you want in return for your networking activities, we can start looking at how to select the right events, making sure that you're positioning yourself in the right location, the right position to meet the right people to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, whether that's sourcing new clients, sourcing new suppliers, accessing specific types of knowledge, creating diverse networks, developing your career, whatever it is, looking at how we can then make sure we're going to the right events in order to improve that return on investment. This can often mean that we can actually start going to fewer events, but improving that return on investment. So something that often people do, especially when they're starting out in networking, a very common pitfall is to just go to all events because it's exciting and it's new and it's awesome, and that's absolutely a good thing in terms of trying out the different events and seeing what works for you. But at the same time, it's not sustainable long term, and networking is absolutely a long-term game. So once you kind of find the right kind of like atmosphere, the right kind of format that works for you, which we're going to look at in a future episode, but once you kind of know that, then you want to start thinking strategically and making sure that you are, when you are investing this time, when you are investing this money into your networking activities, you're doing so in the right place in order to potentially attend fewer events, but really improve that return on investment. So being strategic can absolutely help you boost that ROI and get even more back from networking, and doing it in a way that works for you and over the long term, because like I say, absolutely a long-term game. So there are some things for you to think about. Maybe go away and have a chat to your colleagues, have a chat to other business owners, see how they monitor their return on investment from networking activities, if it's something that they've even thought about. If not, then maybe you can share this episode with them, get them to have a think about it as well. And looking at networking, really integrating networking into part of your wider marketing strategy, your knowledge transfer strategy, your innovation strategy, so that it aligns and it helps you achieve your goals faster. So, as always, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you're not subscribed already, what the hell are you doing? Make sure you go subscribe, click the bell, and then you'll know when the next episode lands. So do that now, and I shall see you over at the next one.
A Liquid Studios production.